Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. This is going to be fantastic. How many times have you watched a movie, show, and either you not realized till later, or you've had somebody point out some hidden objects or imagery that you'd missed, and once you point out to you, it's like it changes everything about the film, about the stuff. It's thing we have with us, Robert W. Sullivan IV, and he's here to talk to us all about his books that are covering cinema symbolism.
Welcome to the Three Beards podcast. My name's Craig, along with Austin and Chris.
Passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century.
Let me out.
I'm afraid that is right. Justice and honor in Massachusetts colony?
All right, Chris, we are back. Austin is on assignment, aka it's his birthday. Happy birthday, Viking. So he got the night off. Lucky guy. So enjoy your dinner, sir. Happy birthday. And at this time, I would like to welcome to the show Robert W. Sullivan IV. How are you, sir?
Oh, thank you, Craig. Thank you, Chris, for having me on the Three Beards podcast. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to it. I've been on a bit of a hiatus from thinking radio, but with the release of my latest book, at least the print edition is out. The ebook is probably about a week away. I'm returning to the radio, so it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I had to have you on. Yes. For anybody here, I'm going to put it up on the screen. For those listening, I'll kind of go over it here with everybody. But he's got several books, Cinema Symbolism 1, 2, and 3, and that's there. This one, kind of me. I'm a big movie fan, so it really kind of hit with your subject, the way you did these things, just showing all these hidden symbolisms, the stuff that normally it's not even. I would say it's not even in this. Before I get too much further here, stop. Robert W. Sullivan IV.com. So RobertSullivan4.com. Go there. This gets you a link to his books from Amazon, Barnes and Noble, plus get you more information on his upcoming appearances, excerpts from them, reviews, media press, link to Deadwood Publishing, which I believe you are the CEO, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
There you go. So we have that, and so go there, and yeah, I focus on these ones because you said Cinema Symbolism 3. That's coming out here fairly soon.
No,
correct?
It's out now.
It is now. Okay, that's
the print edition is out, but the ebook, the Kindle or the Nook, that's still about probably a week away. The reason for the delay was the book's 800 pages, so it's a lengthy conversion process.
Okay, yeah. I can only imagine. Yeah, I was trying to figure out kind of where to branch this off because you've got so much material to cover. One of the questions I really had to just kick it off thing we're going to go with real light material here. So what do you think is the heaviest leaning towards? Do you think it's more like esoteric, more towards the occult, more of a religious symbolism? What do you think seems to be the prevalent, like they seem to put more of in their productions over another one?
Oh boy, that is.
I know. That's
a tough one.
Light work.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the context of the movie. The one theme that I constantly am seeing over and over again, and it ties into a lot of other themes in film, is Gnosticism. That's the one that I kind of always seem to be. That's the one that seems to be really prevalent in Hollywood, and that they really seem to like to use. And Gnosticism is a broad subject. It involves, mystical Christianity and the occult and alchemy and things like that. And I think one of the reasons that it appeals, I think one of the reasons why Hollywood really leans on it is because it's the idea of the average everyday person turning out to be this sort of extraordinary figure. This idea of, the Christ figure amongst us, as it were, who could be anybody. And it overlaps. Like I said, I mean, there are some movies that are really decidedly Gnostic, but you do have these films that flirt with it or tread on it. So, if you ask me, kind of the one theme in Hollywood that I think is probably like a favorite, it would be probably Gnosticism. But then you get into, the whole idea of Joseph Campbell with the monomyth. I mean, that's you can find elements of that in just about every movie ever made. I mean, you can always almost find one or two elements of that thing in any movie. I mean, even in my latest book, I went so far as to say, you look at something like, the comedy Smokey and the Bandit. I mean, something that is, you probably wouldn't even, link with Joseph Campbell or the monomyth, but I mean, you can find elements of that movie in that. I mean, of the monomyth in that film. So it's again, it's a broad spectrum what Hollywood draws from, but Gnosticism, the monomyth, that's omnipresent. So
I noticed, I don't know if you noticed, but I've noticed a lot of Freemasonry tied into Hollywood movies. I was watching a cartoon the other day. Several months back, I took a screenshot of it. A lady was in a rocking chair. There was a compass and square behind her head. It didn't have a G, it just had a compass and square. And I'm like, oh, okay. Is the author saying that, the writer saying that he is a Freemason? I mean, I see a lot of Freemason stuff tied into the Hollywood movies and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you will definitely find Masonic symbolism in film. Some of it is probably, it depends. Some of it could be happenstance. I mean, where a character is just wearing a Masonic ring or something like that. Some of it is definitely intentional. In my first book that I wrote, and I've talked about this on other shows, the National Treasure movie is actually a Masonic ritual. That's actually the 13th degree of the Scottish Rite, the 7th of the York Rite, that you're actually watching a Masonic ritual on the big screen. So yeah, I mean, and when you're getting into Masonry, my goodness, I mean, most of the founders of the major Hollywood studios were Freemasons. So it's not anything I would be too alarmed over. It is interesting that a lot of people see sort of the overt Masonic symbols, like the square and compass, there are square and compasses, like you said. The letter G being absent, that doesn't surprise me. In fact, the G is a modern invention. When you go back in time, you just see the square and compasses. A lot of times it has an all-seeing eye in it. Then when you get into the United States, replaced by the letter G. But like, one of the things that is really cleverly done with Freemasonry is the number 47. That turns up all over the place, and that denotes Masonic rulership. I mean, if you get to know it and you get to spot it, and it's contextual, you will see that repeatedly used.
The all-seeing eye too. It's like you were talking about. That's in so many things, like even cartoons. I mean, everything from SpongeBob to it's Gravity Falls. I don't know if you've ever watched that. They even have a character which is the all-seeing eye. Yeah, it is. So you have I wish I could remember the name of it, but it's like you could bring it up. It's just you see him, and there's so many. I think there's even Disney one, like one Goofy's got a skateboard, and on it is the all-seeing eye on the body. So and then you go through those things, and that's one of those ones. If you thought if it was more long, like they really like to do the Masonic, the Illuminati, the occult. I mean, I know there's so many movies that are about the occult, so I mean that's just going to be laden with imagery all throughout those films.
Yeah, I also like to look at movies where you don't really expect it. That's and it's so well. you know, the stuff on the surface, you know, that's not really what, you know, the books are about. It's more really going into stuff that you can't see, that is really, you know, buried well within the celluloid. That's just, it's there, but it's really hard to pick up on. It's easier to pick up on once you know the context of the movie. Am I dealing with, like I said, a Gnostic film, an alchemical film, something relating to the monomyth? Once that's kind of deciphered, it becomes a lot easier. But you know, it is really incredible the level that the filmmakers, in some instances, some are more sophisticated than others, will go to incorporate and hide these little homages, these little Easter eggs, occult themes in cinema. I mean, it's definitely there. I mean, you can document it quite easily once your eyes train for it.
Yeah. Caroline just she asked a question. It's like, and one of the ones I was going to get to on is numerology. That's in a lot of things. She's any number symbolism, for instance, the number 33 or a clock that reads 9/11 on various movies. And one example would be The Matrix, if you've seen the driver's license of Neo.
Right. It's actually his passport.
Oh, passport. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
It's the passport that seems to predict 9/11 because it expires on September 11th, 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely eerie. I mean, it's really when you're looking at the 9/11 lead up in media, and I don't think it's intentional. I think it's some sort of product of some sort of like the collective unconscious working in reverse. It is really startling, the movies and the cinema and the media, pop culture that really does lead up to this thing. I mean, the whole thing with the Matrix, with the passport expiring, that's an interesting one, and that's probably one of the most that's really one of the most profound ones because it's right around the event. But like you go back in time, I mean, Fight Club had, which was Brad Pitt, which was also in the late 90s. That also had a lot of 9/11 imagery in it. You know, seemed to be prophesizing 9/11. I mean, I think that movie was released on like September 21st, 1999, maybe. I mean, like just almost 2 years to the day. And then the one episode with Bart Simpson, where he's holding up money. The release date on that was like September 21st, like 1996. It's all like the time sequence of the date that the show aired is like right around September 11th. That's something that a lot of people weren't aware of, and that's something I point out in the book. And it really is uncanny. Some of the things going on in cinema, in TV, in media pre 9/11 that do seem to point to it. And like I said, I don't know if the way you have to account for it because it's there. I mean, it's definitely there. I mean, you know, it's happening. So how do you account for it? And, you know, is it psychological? Is it some sort of Jungian synchronicity type of event happening? It's a deep study. But yeah, I mean, when you're dealing with numbers in film, yeah, I mean, these guys use it also. I mean, you know, the one that September 11th is one. I'm trying to. There's so many. I mean, good grief. I'm drawing a blank right now. But yeah, numbers. Oh, yeah. Numbers turn up all over the place in cinema, and you know, you do the math or something. It's foreshadowing something that's happening in the movie. Yeah, I mean, they use numbers to with great efficiency.
Were you you know, kind of talking about numerology? You know, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. There's a lot of numerology in that, as well as Jim Carrey's movie 23.
Yeah, well, 23 is intentionally done because they're repeating it. The Shining, he repeats numbers and he repeats tropes. He uses tropes as repetition. I mean, just that whole movie is nothing but repetitive imagery, just endlessly. I mean, Kubrick just constantly is just bombarding your subconscious mind with repetition in that movie. Some of it is numbers, some of it is doubles, and he is doing that to convey the whole idea of the Overlook Hotel being an Ouroboros, essentially being a serpent that's endlessly biting its tail, and the events in that hotel are just endlessly doomed to repeat over and over again. So yeah, I mean, he repeats. I mean, I know he repeats the number 12 over and over again. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, what is it? I mean, just off the top of my head, you know, Jack throws the ball against the wall 12 times. He hits the door with the axe 12 times. They take 12 turns in the hedge maze. Again, there's so many of them. I mean, I just am drawing a blank. There's just so many repetition in The Shining, and that's what I really like about Kubrick is and that's shows a high level of sophistication. And that's one of the things I really look for is a filmmaker who uses imagery in one film but then turns it off in another and uses something else. They don't keep going back or falling back onto the same thing over and over again. They use a different trope or something like that. That to me is really the hallmark of an expert craftsman. So when you're dealing with Kubrick, I mean, he's one of the greats, no doubt.
And like with Kubrick, and that's one of the things I had a little bit of notes on him. Like I really wanted to get with you because do you think this is an intentional thing for him, or he's just got a real fascination with this symbolism, this intricate things? Because you look at some of his works, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Clockwork Orange, Eyes Wide Shut. I mean, these are all laden with symbolism. And
he is definitely intentional. I mean, he would drive. I mean, there's stories about Kubrick. I mean, of him filming the same scene, 100 times. I mean, he was driving Shelley Duvall crazy on the set, just filming the same scene over and over again, just looking for like that one shadow to fall correctly, or looking for something that was intangible that no one could put their finger on. But when he saw it, he was like, okay, that's it. We don't have to film this again. So yeah, I mean, Kubrick really plays a lot in his cinema. I mean, like I said, he uses different techniques to convey different things. I mean, one of the things that Kubrick is probably most known for more than anything else is the bathroom. I mean, the bathroom is constantly being used in his movies for one reason or another. I mean, in a lot of his movies, the most critical scenes, where these pivotal scenes are occurring in a bathroom. I mean, there's been I have a book written by, about Kubrick. I mean, there's a whole thing called the Kubrick bathroom, just about his fascination with bathroom imagery. The only thing the one thing I fall back on with that is I think he's getting it from Psycho. That was the first movie to ever show a toilet flushing. And that was Hitchcock, and you'll definitely see a Hitchcock influence upon Kubrick. So my opinion is he's probably getting that from Alfred Hitchcock. But yeah, I mean, the Kubrick bathroom is well known. And like you said, I mean, he uses all sorts of esoteric techniques, whether it's repetition, lighting, to invest his movies with this sort of supernatural feel to them. I mean, they definitely have it.
And Don DeCristofaro, he just commented too, M. Night Shyamalan, incorporates it a lot in his movies as well. I mean, he's one that has a lot of symbolism as well.
Yeah, I'm not a real big fan of his. I saw The Sixth Sense in the theater. It's funny. It's an interesting story. I'll tell it real quick. There was a movie that came out in 1990 that I never saw in the theater. It was called Jacob's Ladder, made by a filmmaker named Adrian Lyne, whose films are likewise also laden with a lot of esoteric and alchemical themes, things like that. I never saw the movie. It was one of those films that just kind of always fell through the cracks. And in 1999, I was 98, 99, somewhere in there. I saw The Sixth Sense in the theater. And I did like the film. I like the twist ending, things like that. The ones that came after it, I wasn't really a big fan of. I never really was a huge admirer of his works past The Sixth Sense. But then in around 2004, 05, I finally got around to seeing Jacob's Ladder, and my initial reaction was, oh, wow. I was like, M. Night Shyamalan really did steal a lot of this movie from Jacob's Ladder. I mean, if you ever watch Jacob's Ladder, which came out about 9 years earlier than The Sixth Sense, I mean, it's the same movie. I mean, it's almost, the exact same theme, the exact same type of ending. And he really, it's like, oh, he really borrowed a lot from Jacob's Ladder. So I really don't watch too much of M. Night Shyamalan. I kind of, I want to say I lost respect. I lost respect. I didn't do that. I still like The Sixth Sense. I never really was a fan of his films after that. There was a couple of them I saw that I really wasn't a fan of. But, I loved Jacob's Ladder. And like I said, if you like The Sixth Sense, by all means, check out Jacob's Ladder, because you're going to see where M. Night Shyamalan got a lot of his ideas from.
Oh, yeah. You could definitely see that he was influenced by that for sure. I mean, that's that's something that his movies. I mean, just you want to talk about iconic roles, and I don't know if it was just because of that symbolism that's in these that it sticks with you so much. But I mean, if anybody's watched these movies, I mean, Eyes Wide Shut, I think, was a little bit more of a selective. Not everybody's seen it, but the ones that have, I mean, you remember scenes from this movie.
Yeah, well, Eyes Wide Shut is interesting because Kubrick, the whole thing with that movie, the key to unlocking that movie is the Christmas lights. He saturates that movie with the Christmas lights, and it's not the little white ones; it's the real bright red, purple, orange, gaudy ones. I mean, they're in every scene. And then he surrounds these Christmas lights with this whole idea of pedophilia, drug abuse, infidelity, sort of what you would call the crimes, the infidelities plaguing mankind, plaguing womankind, drug overdoses, prostitution, child trafficking, things like that. But then he kicks it up a level, and this is when the Tom Cruise character gets to the Somerton mansion, and there's no Christmas lights. It's devoid of the lights. And what Kubrick is trying to tell you subconsciously is, if you think that's bad, this is where the real evil in the world is. With these puppet masters pulling the strings behind the scenes. Interesting bit of synchronicity with Eyes Wide Shut. That was a movie that featured Tom Cruise. It is, like I said, just synchronicity. Featured Tom Cruise wearing a mask of himself. The mask that he wears to the mansion is actually himself. I don't know if a lot of people are aware of that. There's a theory out there that it was the character from, I forget the name of the actor, from Barry Lyndon. It is not. It's actually Cruise's face. Interesting that 2 years later, in 2001, Cruise would do the same thing again in a movie that he made, which is decidedly Gnostic. In fact, it's one of the movies that I take on in my new book called Vanilla Sky. Where Cruise wears a mask of himself also in that. And that's another one of those 9/11 movies. That was filmed, I believe, in 2000 or 2001. And if you've never seen that movie, and you want to see like another one of these lead ups to 9/11, there's a scene at the end of that movie. This was all filmed pre 9/11. The movie was released, I believe, in December of 2001, so like 3 months after 9/11 happened. And if you've seen the movie, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a scene at the end where the Tom Cruise character goes up on this enormously high skyscraper that is actually in New York City, overlooking the Twin Towers, and he's forced to jump off of it. And he plummets down. I mean, and you just can't help but think of those poor people jumping off those skyscrapers. And there was quite a backlash about this. I actually did some research, and there was a giant, large, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, protests.
Protest,
yeah, to remove the scene, to re-edit it or take it out of the movie. Backlash, I guess, is the best word I'm looking for. But they didn't, and I'm glad they didn't. I always viewed sort of one of the ultimate, like we were talking about earlier, is one of the ultimate 9/11 movies. Two of them, I guess, would be Fight Club and The Matrix. Those are sort of almost like a tongue-in-cheek take on 9/11. Vanilla Sky isn't. That's very poignant when you see that imagery at the end. I mean, it really does hit home, about these people dying and the Tom Cruise characters sort of making this life or death decision. If you watch the movie, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, I won't spoil it for you. But that's Vanilla Sky is an incredibly Gnostic film, and again, just goes back to what I was saying about Hollywood's fascination with the Christian heresy.
Now, before we, I'd be remiss not to let you talk about this, because this is one of your favorites too, is the Back to Future trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
And that in that one, like I said, so I'll let you take it from there, because just the way, like I said, the way this, a lot of people don't realize this. They don't once you explain it, once he gets done explaining this thing, it's going to kind of open your eyes. You're like, oh, it does make sense how that, how those laid out. It's one of those things overt that you don't even realize is there until it's pointed out to you. So take it from there.
Yeah, well, Zemeckis is another one of these guys. He's very adroit with this material. And I saw all three of the Back to the Future movies in the theater, and I love them. I have in fact, I have the Blu-ray box set here, and they're great movies. I mean, those are movies that, I mean, I'll get into the esoteric symbolism, but those are really, like I said, these are movies that he really paid attention to detail. I mean, the detail in these movies, I mean, he really, really knows what he's doing. I mean, the first movie has stuff going on that affects the second movie, the third movie. To make a long story short, I mean, I'll get into a little bit if you want, but when you're getting to the esoteric imagery, when you're doing it Back to the Future, you're really looking at a study. This is more the first one than any of them. It's a comparative religion study when you're dealing with these archetypes, this Egyptian, religion, of Osiris, Isis, Horus. You clearly have the Doc Brown character who is sort of this Hermes Trismegistus magician analog. I mean, clearly you have the Osiris figure as George McFly, who is murdered by the Set character and is ultimately resurrected. This would be the Biff Tannen character. In fact, the name Tannen echoes Typhon, sort of a little play on words there. But then you get, Marty as sort of the Horus, Christ, sun character, sun god, sun solar man god figure. And of course, you have the idea of the DeLorean, as the sun chariot of Apollo. This is again the sun god figure of Marty, and of course it gets up to 88, and then it breaks the space-time continuum. If you take the number 8 and turn it sideways, that's the Lemnis gate. That's the symbol of space-time, of infinity, and you will find this used repeatedly in time travel movies. In Donnie Darko, the date that he's given adds up to the number 88. And in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, to activate the phone booth, he has to push the buttons on the keypad, which is the Lemnis gate, the number 8 turned on its side. And then, of course, the number 8, 88, this is a reference to October 4th, of course, which is 10:04, which is when the lightning's going to strike the clock tower. And of course, October 4th is the, when you look at the Gregorian solar calendar, October 4th designates that there's 88 days left in the solar calendar. This is, again, one of the reasons why the DeLorean, the sun chariot, has to hit 88 miles an hour, a bit of numerology there. I mean, then you get into the whole idea of Doc Brown being, like I said, the Hermes Trismegistus, Benjamin Franklin analog, drawing lightning down from the heavens. The attention to detail is astounding in these movies. The one thing that I really like, I mean, I could go, on and on about this. The one thing that I really like is in part 1, when they're talking in front of the clock tower. This is with Marty with his girlfriend. They're standing in front of a fortune teller shop. I forget the name of it, but it says palmistry. It's see the future, tarot card readings, things like that. Well, when he goes ahead to the future, to I think it's 2015, that same building, that same storefront is now blast to the past, which is where he buys the sports almanac. So in the present, it's a store where you can see the future. In the future, it houses the past. I thought that was a nice little dichotomy there that Zemeckis pulled. I mean, what is it? The Statler Toyota dealership, when he goes back in time to the Old West. That's the Statler is the guy selling the horses, one of his ancestors. I thought that was pretty clever. There's little tropes like that, but there is a lot of esoteric numerology, symbolism, comparative religion study going on in Back to the Future. I love those movies. They're kind of one of the ones like Black Swan or, these movies that, every time I watch it, I kind of pick up on something new going on. The guy who really now has captivated me, and this is something we were talking about before I came on, is Ari Aster. Every time I seem to watch Hereditary or Midsommar, I seem to pick up on something new on those. I mean, again, this is I describe him in my book. I love those two movies. I say this unapologetically. That man is without question this generation's version of Roman Polanski. I mean, those movies are just masterpieces. Both of them.
Yeah, I agree. Those, we already touched on the numerology one. The other one that really fascinated me was your talk about the Kabbalistic form of the golem and the things that these representations. And as you go here and explain these, there's going to be another one that's going to kind of surprise a lot of people, because there's going to be things once you think about it, you're like, that is actually what that is.
Well, right. You have these two things that run parallel. You have the Kabbalistic golem, which is this inanimate object created, given human-like qualities, becoming a human, human characteristics. This runs parallel with this notion in the Hermetic tradition, the Kabbalah and Hermeticism. run completely parallel. This idea of animated statues in the Hermetica, in the Asclepius, where Hermes is talking with this god, and he says, mankind can make statues, and these are no ordinary statues, and he can invest them with these spirits and animate them and have them come to life. I mean, it's in that tract, in that dialogue, that you will find, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, or Smurfette, or Roy Batty, or Frosty the Snowman. These Kabbalistic, hermetic creations that are artificial but take on human characteristics. And again, this is another Hollywood fascination. This is something that fascinated the Renaissance. The Renaissance people like Ficino and Pico and those characters, they were all fascinated by Kabbalah and Hermeticism and this whole idea of animating statues. There's actually a story out there, and this has been told in many a history book. The most famous Hermetic statue was a talking head of brass that belonged to a mystic named Albertus Magnus. And the talking head actually was destroyed by someone probably most of your listeners have heard of, a man by the name of St. Thomas Aquinas. Aquinas destroyed that talking head because it kept interrupting his studies, as the story goes. So yeah, I mean, this whole idea of animation, of investing these inanimate, objects with human characteristics and human life. This goes back to the 2nd, 3rd century. It permeates Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism. I mean, my God, you'll find this. I mean, in one of the first movies ever made, Metropolis, Fritz Lang. Hell the Robot. I mean, you're dealing with Kabbalistic sorcery and Hermetic statues and things like that. So yeah, I mean, this is again Smurfette, a lump of clay, animated by Gargamel to enter the Smurfs village and terrorize it. Frankenstein's monster is probably the most famous one of all. So yeah, I mean, this is stuff that has fascinated, romantic writers, fascinated the Renaissance, and Hollywood runs with it, no question about it.
And then M.A. Allen was just saying, with the coming of AI, VR technology will be part of daily lives outside of video games. It'll be interesting to see how these symbols are integrated within our daily lives. And kind of on that one, it kind of fits in with the cinema too. That one almost to me is like They Live. I've talked about that.
They Live is a movie that I took on in the second cinema book. And again, this is one of those. This is I put it in a chat. Where did I put that? I put it maybe I put that in my chapter on the Illuminati. But you could also put that movie in the Gnostic section. I mean, because clearly you have this whole idea of the aliens being the archons, being these creatures that are trying to keep humankind in stasis, trying to keep them asleep. This is, of course, the purpose of the agents in the Matrix. If you ever watched the movie Dark City, that's another one of these Gnostic films where the strangers take on the role of the archons. They also play the role of the aeons, but that's another conversation. But they also play the role of the archons, and that the whole purpose of the archons are to keep humankind asleep, to keep them in stasis. And this is the whole purpose of the aliens that They Live. They're using consumerism, materialism, just to keep humankind's spirit immured in matter. And what's really interesting about that movie is I love the Roddy Piper character. One of the Gnostic philosophers, by the name of Basilides, one of his theologies was, he said that the way you can defeat the archons is by through nothingness. And this is a sort of a forerunner or a parallel with Zen Buddhism, where Basilides said, if you want to thwart the demiurge and the archons, you should, it's to reduce yourself to willed nothingness. You basically, sit in an empty room, meditate, do nothing all day. It's like willed ignorance almost. If you ever watch the movie Blade Runner 2049, or you watch The Last Jedi, this is what Luke Skywalker and the Harrison Ford character are trying to do. They're trying to will themselves out of existence. And They Live, so it's nothingness. It's this idea that nothingness can defeat the archons. Well, if you ever watch They Live, I mean, what's the name of the Roddy Piper character? I mean, it's nada. It's Spanish for nothing. So you get this very deep Gnostic thread in They Live. And one of the things I point out in the books, I said the Gnostic films are always being confused with these Illuminati movies, and it's the reason is because the Gnostic films always inevitably have this character of the demiurge, the sort of hidden puppet master who has a host of strange henchmen who are trying to keep a character or humankind down, asleep in stasis. And this is more of akin to Gnosticism than it is really to the Illuminati. But it makes for great cinema. I point it out either way. Either way a person wants to look at it is fine. But it's probably more akin to Gnosticism than anything else.
We have a question from Chastity. What about symbolism in Transformers? I haven't seen any. Maybe you've picked it apart.
No, I've never seen any of the Transformer movies. The one thing I will say about Transformers is they are a parody of the Watchers from the Book of Enoch, where you have these sort of cast down space aliens who are viewed as villains from where they're from, but on Earth they're viewed as heroes. And you get this kind of reversal in the Book of Enoch, where the Watchers are the fallen demons, but they're actually the providers of wisdom to humankind. So you do have this whole idea of the Transformers. I've never seen any of the movies specifically. I did watch some of the cartoons when I was a kid growing up, but you do have the whole idea of the Transformers. This would be the Autobots being sort of the fallen Watchers from the Book of Enoch. You will definitely see a parallel with Transformers and the Book of Enoch. So,
yeah, there's one like in April. I see Hairline just put the number 0 is considered the cosmic egg, God, infinity, and I know that's used quite a bit. And then also, we talked a little bit. April's bringing it up. We talked a little bit before about Marvel and DC movies, that they are laden with symbolism, especially like lately we've had a lot. And I told you this before show, I was going to bring it up. There has been a lot in both TV shows and movies where they've really pulled heavy on the Elder Furic rune system, everything from Thor to the show, the Vikings, they've gone through, and this seems to be prevalent to where there's a lot of things that are heavily focused on this. So I don't know if this is like a current trend or what, or if it was just like, this has just been something that's permeated finally to where it's at a head.
Well, I'll go a couple directions with this. One is, I told you this, we were talking before the show. When I was growing up as a kid, for whatever reason, I never got into the Marvel universe. I don't know why. I was much more interested in the DC characters. I was a huge Batman fan, Superman, even, the Flash, Wonder Woman. I remember the show with Linda Carter. Of course, I remember the Incredible Hulk, but I never got into the Marvel universe, the X-Men, Spider-Man. I'm not dumping on it or saying it's bad or negative. I just never really got into it. So I really haven't seen too many of the Marvel movies. So I'm not going to comment. The one thing I do, whenever I'm doing this, I don't comment on movies that I've never seen or offer criticism or praise. I just want to do that. Regarding the runes, again, like Thor and some of the, I've never seen that. I've never watched 1 second of, I don't know if it's in there or not, Game of Thrones. I've never seen any of that. If the movie I would say I would direct your attention to, though, I mean, again, this is something I mentioned a few minutes ago, is Midsommar. If you're interested in the Elder and Younger Futhark runes, by all means, watch that movie because they are everywhere. And they are the key to decoding, they're part of the key to decoding that movie. The runes that are used foreshadow and suggest what's going on in the movie. If I analyze it, I have the full rune breakdown of Midsommar in Cinema Symbolism 3. In fact, what's funny is with that was I'll tell a story real quickly. Cinema Symbolism 3 was done. It was done a year ago, and I saw 2 movies in January of 2020. That I got for Christmas, that I got on DVD, I got on Blu-ray, and it was Midsommar and Joker. And I was so impressed with both of those that I thought, no. I had to incorporate them. And that actually, analyzing Midsommar and Joker slowed the book down for a whole year. And Midsommar is just overloaded with symbolism. I mean, you're talking about things that that movie borrows from The Wicker Man. You got the runes going on in it. I mean, his movies, the two. I mean, I could do Hereditary. I probably will maybe in the next one. It's been picked apart pretty well. But I mean, he really knows what he's doing. I mean, like I said, I'd call him like this generation's version of Polanski. But if you're interested in the runes, in the Elder and Younger Futhark, by all means, if you haven't seen Midsommar, by all, it's a fantastic movie anyway. But if you're interested in runes, by all means, check it out, because the runes in that movie center around what's going on in the movie and help foreshadow it and define the characters and so on and so forth. So if you're interested in a study of Nordic runes, Midsommar is the movie for you.
Yeah, believe it or not, you get some hate messages on this one. I've never watched it. I need to now. It's one of those. It's one of those ones I never got around to watching it, but definitely upon your recommendation, what I'm seeing from the comments from everybody, it's like that is something that definitely need to check out. Other ones, like I said, I would say The Witcher. Other ones, they've really Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings. I mean, there's definitely overarching themes to these things, just like you brought through, how Star Wars has the overarching, theme to it. I don't know as I'm sitting here, if I could think back to like Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings, anything that was an overt, like, oh my God, I recognize that symbol. As a lot of it was, pretty much the Elven language, all that stuff was created. Right.
Yeah. Tolkien was in a group at Oxford. He was called the Inklings. He was hanging around with it was him, C.S. Lewis, a few others. I believe the one guy's name was Charles Williams, and he was a Christian mystic. He flirted with the Golden Dawn, groups like that. And Tolkien wanted to create his own mythology. There's some interesting stories with. He wrote The Hobbit first, and that's sort of like the preamble, I suppose, to the Lord of the Rings. And when he decided to do the Lord of the Rings. And you're right. I mean, it's his own language. I mean, it's clearly based on the runes, the Elven language, and the dwarves with their symbols, and the dwarven runes, and the moon runes, I guess they're called. He when he went all in with Lord of the Rings, the one thing that he messed up was when he did The Hobbit. When Bilbo stumbles upon Gollum down in the cavern, the ring is just a magic ring. It's nothing. And when he did Lord of the Rings, he thought, oh, damn. He thought, I got to really bulk up this ring. And he had to go back. And Tolkien rewrote large sections of The Hobbit, especially the scene with Gollum and Bilbo, to set up for the Lord of the Rings. In the original Hobbit, it's nothing. The ring is just a magic ring. It's nothing. And when Tolkien decided to do Lord of the Rings, the three, the whole expanded after, with Frodo and the quest, Tolkien was like, oh, damn it. He's like, I guess I'm going to have to go back and rewrite most of The Hobbit, which he did. He actually did. He rewrote a whole sections of The Hobbit to make this ring much more important than it was originally. And they're great movies. I love the, when I was a kid, I watched the Ralph Bakshi, the animated ones. From like 1979. This is the one with John Huston. It was Gandalf, provided the voice for Gandalf. Those are the ones I grew up on, and I always thought they were great. I really like those. But then, of course, the Peter Jackson ones, are just superb masterpieces. And again, you're dealing with those movies, especially Lord of the Rings. You're dealing with the Campbell monomyth. With the Christ figure, which is Frodo doing battle with the dark evil Lord Sauron. Where have we seen this before? Whether it be Jesus Christ dealing with Satan, Luke Skywalker, and Darth Vader, Harry Potter and the Death Eaters. Yada, yada, yada. You will find this whole Manichaean good versus evil, light versus dark, all over the damn place. It's the oldest story of them all. And one of the things, like I said, that when I was doing Cinema Symbolism 3, one of the things that I was really interested in pointing out was when I have Campbell's monomyth here with 1,000 Faces sitting right there, actually. When you read it, the one thing that just kind of jumps off the pages is, when you're getting into Star Wars, Lucas will tell you, hey, I used Campbell's, here with 1,000 Faces to craft, episodes 4, 5, and 6 around. And when you understand that, there's, meeting with the goddess, there's supernatural aid, there's call to adventure, there's refusal of the call. You can see all the elements there. There's the threshold guardian. And when I started doing Cinema Symbolism 3, I started looking at movies that weren't the monomyth, that weren't Star Wars, but just wondering, could I see the elements of of Campbell's novel there? Of Campbell's work. It's not a novel, of Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces. And with the house with a clock in its walls, you clearly have the Uncle Jonathan character, and the Florence character would be the Threshold Guardians, who are kind of like the keepers of the magic world away from the little boy hero. You can look at Willy Wonka almost as a threshold guardian. And one of the ones that I pointed out in the book was, I said, look, and this is what I mentioned back at the beginning of the show. I said, look at Smokey and the Bandit. I mean, Big Enos and Little Enos Burdett are threshold guardians. I mean, those are the guys who put Bandit out on his adventures. So the point I was making was, it just goes to show you how transcendent and omnipresent these elements are. Hollywood knows it, and they know how to use them. And the one thing that, the more I do this, is how expert some of these guys really are, and how they really do draw upon these Renaissance traditions, things like the art of memory. I'll give you a great example of this. And again, I don't want to belabor this. If you haven't seen the movie, but the Ari Aster movie Hereditary, and I'm going to tie this into two movies. If you ever watch the movie The Exorcist, and this is what I'm talking about, like the art of memory. Yep. If you ever see The Exorcist, when the demon is manifesting in the attic for the very first time, you'll remember Chris takes the rod and she pulls down the hatch, and she goes up in the attic, and you hear the strange noises. If you pay attention to that movie, that rod remains intentionally placed outside Reagan's bedroom door the entire film. And that is a complete art of memory trick. And what that is doing there is, every time you see it, it's designed to draw you back to that opening scene where she's going up to investigate, and you hear the demon roaming around. It's designed to call your memory back subconsciously to that. When you watch The Exorcist, when she goes up in the attic, and I think when she's looking for the rat traps or something, one of the things that she finds up, that she shines the light on, with the candle on, is a mannequin. It's like a store mannequin. It doesn't have any clothes on. It's just, a naked mannequin just up in her attic, whatever. You don't think anything of it. When you watch Hereditary years later, and the wife goes up in the attic, and this is a whole movie about demonic possession. What's up in the attic? I mean, it's a mannequin. That is there. That is intentionally placed, and that is designed to draw your mind back 50 years earlier to The Exorcist, up to when she went into the attic. And that's the kind of things that these guys tinker with. And you get filmmakers like Aster, like Polanski, like Kubrick, like Aronofsky. These guys are geniuses, are supreme experts with this stuff. And the more I watch these films and the more I pay attention to them, I really do begin to appreciate how well these guys do encode these little hidden messages and these little art of memory tricks. And, like I said, we were talking at the beginning of this, numerology, the occult. Believe me, these guys go all in on this stuff. Yeah, it's like one of the ones, like in your latest book, Cinema Symbolism 3, like one of the movies that I really want I said I really like is Pan's Labyrinth. Oh, that one. That one, for people who haven't seen it, you got to watch that one. Because it's like, for me, it's the eyeballs. I still, it's like you see that one, it's like it's unforgettable, in some of those scenes. Guillermo del Toro is another one you can add to that list. I analyzed Pan's Labyrinth. I did The Shape of Water, and in Cinema Symbolism 2, I did Crimson Peak. And yeah, he employs all kind of crazy stuff going on in his films. If you ever watch Crimson Peak, and I documented in Cinema Symbolism 2, CS2 I call it. So Crimson Peak is a remake of The Shining, almost frame by frame. Yep. The imagery, if you watch Crimson Peak, I have like a chart in there of like 70 comparisons that you can make with The Shining to Crimson Peak. Pan's Labyrinth has all kind of stuff going on in it. Again, you have some alchemical symbolism in that movie. You clearly have an homage to The Wizard of Oz. That's another movie that is frequently referenced in film. With the little girl at the end in the red shoes, that's a drawback to Dorothy's ruby slippers. If you ever see the movie, it's a great movie. It came out, I think, about 2 years ago, called Satanic Panic. The heroine The heroine in that wears red Converse shoes, and that's a throwback to Dorothy's ruby red slippers. So yeah, and then The Shape of Water that he won an Oscar for. That's a tremendous movie. Also, I thoroughly enjoyed that. That takes place in Baltimore, which is where I am. So I guess that had a special place in my heart. That movie runs parallel. If you're from Baltimore, there's a filmmaker named John Waters. Most people have heard of him. If you watch Shape of Water and you're from Baltimore, that movie runs parallel with a movie called Hairspray. They take place in the exact same time frame, and I always thought that was a little interesting. So yeah, if you're into again, yeah, Del Toro, you can definitely add to that list. Very adroit, very clever cinema maker.
Yeah, you touched on Wizard of Oz, and that was one in an interview I had listened, and I really liked it. I had never even pieced that together about how Dorothy's shoes were originally silver,
right?
And not root in there. So I'll let you go there because, like you said, you explained it perfectly. I'd never even thought about this.
Well, there's loads of allegory going on inside the Wizard of Oz, and it's like, where do you want to start? Because it's multi-layered. That's what makes that such a complex movie. The guy who wrote it, L. Frank Baum, was a theosophist, he was a member of Madame Blavatsky's group, which was sort of neo-Gnosticism. So you see this whole Hermetic, Kabbalistic, Gnostic influx there, but you have the political influx, which is what you're talking about. In the novel, there's silver, and they didn't, when they were making the movie, they didn't show up. When what's her name, Judy Garland was standing on the yellow brick road wearing silver shoes, they couldn't film it. It looked like she was like her feet were missing. It didn't turn up, so they had to get rid of the silver shoes and they put the red shoes on her. In the novel, the whole movie, when you get into the Gnostic, occult, Kabbalistic imagery of this thing, but there's a whole political allegory where the wizard is William McKinley, the Emerald City is green because it represents paper money, the yellow brick road is the gold standard that leads to paper money. The silver shoes are the free silver movement, which was like the gold standard. I mean, the Tin Man is the American laborer who had to get back. There was a depression in 1896, so he's immobile and he gets back to work by oiling him up. And of course, it was Rockefeller's oil company that helped alleviate the depression of 1896 by putting people back to work with the oil companies. The Scarecrow is obviously the American farmer. The Cowardly Lion is William McKinley's challenger. What's his name? His name's escaping me. Yeah, I'd have to go look it up. It's just slipping my mind. So you have this deep political allegory going on inside the Wizard of Oz. But then, of course, it's Williams Jennings Bryant is who it is. And Williams Jennings Bryant was a teetotaler. He didn't drink alcohol, and this is why the dog's named Toto, by the way. Then you get into the whole Kabbalistic Gnostic, Blavatsky take on it, where you have clearly the wizard is the demiurge, the false messiah. The yellow brick road is the golden path of religion, Christianity, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, which leads to the false god. It's all phony. And of course, she walks upon this and, discovers that it's all bogus. And then you have the whole idea, and this comes out of the Hermetica and Kabbalah, where you have these spheres of influence, and that this you'll find, where she has to go through these trials, these sort of tests of spiritual perfection. We clearly have the Wicked Witch of the West, who's coordinating with the Bana sphere of Kabbalah, the evil woman, the apples. These are all sort of these levels of initiation, these spiritual cleansing tests. The Hermetica talks about this in the Pymander, and Kabbalah, the spheres that one has to pass through to get to Keter, or to Ein Sof, the spiritual Godhead. Mm-hmm. And you'll find this in the Wizard of Oz. You see this in movies like Snowpiercer. The train cars are these levels of spiritual perfection that they have to negotiate and navigate to get to the demiurge, to the god Wilford, who again is the false messiah. At the demiurge, everyone loves Ed Harris, the demiurge from the Truman Show, the demiurge in Snowpiercer. So Wizard of Oz, you have this whole idea of her going through the spiritual cleansing, the spiritual perfection, these levels of Kabbalistic spheres of Hermetic governors, as it were, to finally get to the wizard. He's bogus. He's a demiurge. She kills the Wicked Witch. And then, of course, at the end, she has her Gnostic epiphany. She has her Gnostic revelation. She's come to know herself, the Hermetic ideal, which is that there's no place like home. and she gets to return, and of course no one understands her because she's awakened. She's undergone the Gnostic experience. This is the same thing that happens to Alice in Wonderland. This is the same thing that happens to Neo in the Matrix, and she doesn't fit in anymore because she's been enlightened. The farmhands don't understand her. So Wizard of Oz, I mean, just layer upon layer of occult and political symbolism. Yeah, I mean, a lot going on, to say the least.
Yeah, and as we're getting to the point, like here's, we're getting close to being done here. I want to get to like one of the biggest questions is my take on it is I don't think this is some underarching, overarching, I should say, thing where all these directors together because they're pushing this agenda, they're trying to brainwash you. I think some of these people either may have a belief system and this is their way of kind of showing it off to the world. And I was going to get your take on that. It's just like, what do you think is the reason behind like SpongeBob having the all-seeing eye?
Well, it could be. I mean, you have to also account for sensationalism. I mean, it could just be, hey, let's just throw this into, get people talking about it. I mean, I don't think there's like a secret cabal. I mean, I've watched tons of movies. I've never felt brainwashed or anything like that. I mean, I find it more interesting than anything else. There are filmmakers who do try to foist their beliefs upon you. I mean, for example, I can give you a textbook example of this. Darren Aronofsky with the movie Mother, with Jen Lawrence and Javier Bardem. I mean, this is clearly him showing you how much he hates Christianity, and he doesn't pull back any punches. So sometimes they do try to foist their beliefs upon you. I always say I always equate it to the symbolism as like an architect, like geomancy or astromancy, with an architect trying to incorporate these astral influences, these alignments in buildings, which is something I documented in my first book. And it was never anything negative. It was never meant to be mind control or negative. It was always trying to, what's the word Francis Yates uses? Trying to invest the inanimate with spiritus, with this divine presence. And I think that's what these guys are going on in Hollywood. I mean, some of it's sensationalism, of course. Some of it's trash. I mean, some of it's B-movie, schlock, of course. I mean, that's the case with everything. But I mean, you get into some of these movies. I mean, when you look at like Star Wars and The Shining, I mean, these are real masterpieces. I mean, I think the symbolism that is used is what these guys are hoping for. It's that it's a form of immortality for them. They're myth makers. They want these things to live forever. I mean, what Star Wars is going on 50 years old. I mean, here we are still talking about it.
Exactly.
We'll walk into a bar. Any Generation Xer or millennial who hasn't heard the term "the Force is with you," who in Scarface, you say hello to my little friend. I mean, this is myth making. Ask anyone. Okay,
oh, yeah.
We talk about archetypal imagery, and this Hollywood makes archetypes. You ask anyone, ask any man, woman, or child to speak like a vampire, and what are they going to do? They're going to imitate Bela Lugosi from Dracula. They're going to try to speak with a Romanian accent. Yep. I mean, so Hollywood myth makes. They're myth makers, and I think by incorporating this symbolism and these ideas, the occult, into and I think that's part of the problem with it is you hear the word occult, it's all negative. Well, it isn't. I mean, you get into I mean, some of it can be, of course, but I mean, not all of it is. And, the idea of incorporating numbers and mythology and ancient religions and symbolism and magic in the movies, it's a way for Hollywood to make modern day mythology. And these guys are very good at it, as we have been talking about.
Because, I mean, that's the first line in your book there. Movies are the new mythology.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I said. That's, which is, it is true. I mean, if you think about it, it's become, to some people, I mean, look at Avatar. It's almost a religion. There's people that, I mean, they live that lifestyle. I mean, everything from just putting, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, go to a convention. Star Trek. I mean,
yep.
I mean, look at not even in cinema. And this is something I talked about before. I talked about. There's a theme in my book. Is I mean, you don't even have to turn to the movies. You can turn to real life. I mean, look at Elvis Presley. I mean, he is a Christ figure. You could actually document that there is a Christ-like religion around him. The travel to Graceland, to the Holy Land, the collection of artifacts, the whole idea of being dead and resurrected. Is he still alive? I mean, you know, and this is a real this was a real person. I mean, and
Yep.
you have this imagery and this theme going on around this guy who was a celebrity who has inadvertently created a kind of quasi religion around him. So it doesn't even happen in movies; it happens in real life.
Wow.
Absolutely.
No, that's. We're gonna need to have you in for a part 2 at some point here, sir. This is.
Oh, I'd love to come back.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll leave you hanging on this. If you look at, and I want people to understand this. I'm not saying that he's a Christ figure, but if you look at the solar imagery and the Christ imagery of Elvis Presley throughout his life, it is astounding. That the synchronicity of Elvis and Jesus and the Son, it is uncanny. It's
Wow.
beyond belief.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, that's great. That's so. Well, hey, Robert W. Sullivan the fourth. Go to robertwsullivaniv.com, and I'm going to put that back up on screen here so everybody can see that real quick again. You go there, and like I said, everybody can see here. You can scroll down. It can show where he's been. He's been on History Channel on a couple of shows. Been on Coast to Coast. You go to appearances, and then all you have to do is real simple. If you can't remember how to type that in, you just go here to the site and you go click, and it takes you right to his books.
Yep.
That's all you got to do. It just clicks you right there. Takes you. You can buy. He's got. I'm assuming this is all that you have. I was looking here. I want to make sure I wasn't missing any.
No, the all the books are out. The only one that is not out is the ebook for Symbolism 3. That should be out in the next week, I would think. Like I said, that got delayed because of the long conversion. When that comes out, then I will be turning to radio more frequently. I will be back on Coast to Coast. I will be doing my regular rounds, and I will be more than happy in the fall or whenever you guys want me to. We can definitely do a part 2 of this. It was my pleasure to be here. I thought it was
absolutely.
show. And absolutely, anytime you want to invite me on, you just let me know, and I will gladly, come back on. It was a great show, and I look forward to returning.
All right. Well, appreciate that very much. And like I said, everybody, please go check these things out. These are, especially if you're into movies, these are amazing companions to go with, especially some of these ones that you love, because it definitely adds a whole new depth to some of these films. If you haven't really thought of it, that's why I said in the opening, there's all these times. How many times have you watched The Wizard of Oz? You've never even, how many people have thought about this was an overarching thing, talking about switching from the silver and gold standards and switching to paper money. That's where these type of things you get from these books. So that's why you need to go pick up these books and then when you rewatch the movies, it's going to change it. It'll change how you view these things. So very well done on those books, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, everybody, Robert, take care. Have a great night, sir.
Thank you for having me on. And like I said, when you're ready for part 2, you just reach out to me by an email and we'll set it up.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Drop me off the camera. How about we take the guest off? That would be amazing. This is what happens when the host tries to do the producing side as well too. Yeah, this is brought to you by Nanny Cakes, Nancy Burke. Yeah, go right here. This is 407-923-2898 or Nanny Cakes 407 on Facebook. Check us out, threebeardspodcast.com. Check us out on all social media via Three Beards Podcast, Twitter, YouTube, obviously Facebook. We're also on Instagram at 3_beards_podcast and at Beards Vault. So check us out on those. We also have Patreon /Three Beards Podcast. If you want to become a beardo, we would appreciate the support. But if anything, if you had to leave with one thing, everybody, go to YouTube, subscribe, and follow. We need that right now. We need to get to 1,000 subscribers. That'll change a lot of stuff for us. It may seem like a really simple, silly thing to you, but it means the world. If you could just go subscribe to us, that would be great. Patriot Radio, download the Zeno app. We're rebroadcast every Thursday night at 10 p.m. courtesy of J&J Beard Company. Go to jjbeardco.com. Check them out. Thank them for being willing to put us on their radio program. And everybody, like I said, go once again, just check us out. Download this. Will be on any podcast app. You can just download it real easy right there. It's pretty easy. Just type in Three Beards Podcast. You'll find it. But everybody, thank you for watching. Appreciate it. and we will see everybody later on.